Okay, good evening. We got a rowdy crowd tonight. Good to hear. Good to hear. All right, good evening. This is the Huntley Community School District 158 Committee of the Whole meeting on February the 2nd. It is 6:03. Can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Craddy?
Here.
Mr. Guerin?
Here.
Mr. Gentry? Mr. Quagliano?
Here.
Mr. Troy?
Here.
Mrs. Maiorino? Mr. Daly?
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm guessing that's why we have so many people here. Yes.
Good evening. Yes, we have the Early Childhood Center here tonight, and some of our friends that are going to be going off to kindergarten next year to help us lead the pledge. I'm going to have them come on up. All right.
Tell us when you...
All right, I'm going to have each of you say your name into the microphone, okay? What's your name? What's your name?
Will. Why?
Hi, I'm Wyatt.
My name is Leo. Why?
All right, friends, we're going to lead the pledge.
Okay,
Everybody wants to stand and put their right hand on their heart. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good job, all right, so we're going to do the picture.
Yeah.
Do you take a picture of here? We're going to go this way. Do they want to? We have little flags. Teachers, if you want to, you're more than welcome to jump on in. I have some staff here to help.
I don't know what these are.
You can wear a flag. All right, we're going to go stand right in front of the board. Yeah. All right, friends, we're going to take a minute. We're going to take a
You did a great job. Nice job. Good job, guys. Thanks for coming tonight.
Friends, turn around my, all right. Thank you. Or can you hold them still? I know.
You did a great job. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, guys.
Where do I put this flag? I get to keep it.
Thank you, parents. Yes, thank you for bringing that.
Very much.
Okay. On to item 3, which is student recognition. Hopefully we can match that enthusiasm. So who do we have? Who's coming to present? Who's going to present our students?
Do you want the crowd yet, or?
You, it's your show, Mrs. Miller. Yeah, you.
Guys?
Late age differential.
A little bit, right?
Okay, looks like you're
Mr. Kursey, we can handle the crutches if it makes you comfortable.
I have an awesome group of students and teachers behind me. So every October, students from across Illinois audition to be part of the Illinois Music Educators Association district and state level festivals. This year, we had 12 students from Huntley High School chosen to represent our school at the District 9 Festival. So for band, we had Carson Bader, Sean Kavanaugh, Taylor Dolson, David Summer. For choir, we had Ava Burns, Gino Clark, Sophia Graba, Ainsley Robbins, Katie Scalella, Olivia Zach, and Bobby Zimmerman. And then for orchestra, we had Ella Feld. These students attended a district festival on November 12th, participating in a day of rehearsals, workshops, and a culminating performance at the end of the day. Continuing our celebration, we actually have 6 students who were then invited to continue on into the All-State Festival in Peoria just this past weekend. Ava Burns and Grace Lehman were invited to participate as future music educators of seminars. Ainsley Robbins as part of the All-State Chorus. David Summer as part of the Honors Band. Frankie Scarpelli with an honorable mention for composition. And Olivia Zach winning first place in the state for composition. Yep. And then here for a picture.
We should also add that this is the most participation that Huntley High School has had, not only in District 9, but at the state level as well. So first time in school history.
Congratulations. Awesome job. Congratulations. Congratulations. Great job. The only thing Congratulations. Congratulations. You're welcome. Nice job, Mike. Congratulations. You're welcome. Congratulations. Great job. Congratulations. Keep going. You were supposed to be hiding in the back of that group. Congratulations.
So did everybody carpool on the ride back? Because the snow was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And then two, can we get a couple in front, too?
No, we're good.
Okay, all right.
Ask the people taking the pictures.
It doesn't happen to be all that often. My calls on me.
Congratulations. Way to go. Very good. And empty the room quickly. All right, those two groups. On item 4, which is public comment. Do we have any public comment tonight? No sheets? No sheets. Okay. On the 5, which is the, I'll let you get comfortable, Mr. Gentry there. Item 5 is revision and adoption of the agenda. Do we have any revisions that they need, corrections? Not, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented for this evening. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Troy. Can we have roll call?
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Okay. Passes. Item 6 is Curriculum and Instruction Committee. Mr. Guerin.
Thank you very much. 6.1, Summer Learning Program. Dr. Del Castillo, Dr. McCrindle, and Dr. Zlemke.
Good evening. Tonight we wanted to share with you what our summer learning programming will be looking like this summer. It's hard to believe it's 2023, and although the weather's cold, we're thinking forward to the warm weather. So we are going to offer very similar programming to what we've had in the past. A couple of our high-level changes. If you remember, last summer we did shift our in-person summer school to be a Monday through Thursday for our ESY and our elementary. That was well received by our families and also the staff as a well-welcomed, 3-day weekend, and we want to make sure we keep our staff and families wanting to send their children. And so high school is going to actually follow the same pattern this year. So we'll be doing a Monday through Thursday in person in the month of June. Our elementary summer school will be taking place over at Leakey Elementary. Thank you, Mr. Iddings, for opening up your building, as well as with our ESY. Our middle school and high school will continue again over at Huntley High School. The programming will be in June for elementary, middle, and high school in person, and then high school will continue with an optional July session, which will be online learning for students, and so that will follow up in the month of July for that as well. We're going to continue to offer some of our summer adventure opportunities for our elementary students as well. So all students will be able to participate in some of those reading activities following the 7 wonders of the world. We're going to take a different lens on it. Last year was the natural world. We're still trying to decide which one we want to research this summer. We had great feedback on that. We're going to continue that this next year. Middle school is actually going to be adding some STEM-based activities to their in-person offerings to hopefully help with engagement with the reading and math. Because we do target our students who are in our MTSS system at that Tier 2, Tier 3 level, and also our credit recovery students. So we want to try to make it engaging and enjoyable for them as well. So those are a couple of the big changes. We are going to revert back to charging for summer school. It's a small fee, $50 for a family to send their child in person for any of that in-person learning. And then the Get Ahead classes at the high school, they have a fee structure which is included in the board packet. We have not upped any fees over the last couple of years, and I know the last 2 summers we were able to provide it free of charge by utilizing some of our ESSER dollars to help support that. But this summer we are going to go back to that same fee it was pre-pandemic, not any higher, just to help offset some of those costs. And with that, those are the big changes that we have. Any questions?
Any questions from anyone on the committee? About the rest of the board? Questions?
Well, I'll just ask, okay, so I know we had these concerted efforts the last couple summers here with Transpired. Is it just we're doing the same type of stuff, or are we going back to where we were at as far as pre-pandemic? We still trying to deal with some of the learning deficit that might be out there still.
Yeah. So last summer, 2 summers ago, we invited all students to attend. Last summer, we narrowed the focus again to just those Tier 2, Tier 3 MTSS students who are maybe showing some signs of unfinished learning.
Right.
This summer, we're going to still hone in on those. Our numbers are getting smaller, getting back closer to what we would have invited pre-pandemic, but we're going to keep that focus narrow for the in-person learning and offer some of those on their own activities at home for anyone else.
Right. Okay.
I think that's something, actually, if you wouldn't mind to put you on the spot, go into a little bit of detail about what that on your own optional learning opportunities are for families that don't choose to participate in summer school, but then also maybe a little bit of how we're tapping on a shoulder of, we really encourage you to do this, just to paint the whole picture.
Absolutely. So last summer, we saw a lot of success with our, we called it the summer adventure piece. We kept that 7 Wonders of the World themed, and through that, each week, students could participate in a problem-based learning activity where they researched one of the 7 Wonders of the World, and then throughout that, they participated in some of our programs that we use, like Lexia, Freckle, that we use every day in our classrooms, which personalizes the learning towards them they do at home. And it's an online program they can log into, and they're able to kind of continue that learning throughout the summer, and it adjusts to their personalized pace. So all students have the opportunity to participate in that.
And just for clarity, like Lexia and Freckle, they're targeted based on where they are in their STAR assessment, their progression. So it's the difficulty to help continue that progression in the online platform.
Correct.
Okay, good. And it's just a nice, you want to keep the bridge going over the summer, so the kids learning that type of stuff. So it's good. It's just want to sure there's as many opportunities available. It sounds like it goes well beyond just the kids who are attending summer school. That's good.
Yes, and for the communication piece, our principals do put that in their newsletters and try to send that out on a regular basis to make sure families stay connected. And I know we put some stuff out from the district level just to remind families that they can do that and participate in that. So.
All right, if there's no other questions, thank you for that presentation, and we'll move to 6.2, the middle school programming, AVID and AVID Excel. Dr. Zwem.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. This is an exciting night for us. Over the last 6 months or so, there's been a review of a program called AVID. We conducted some of that work beginning in the summer of 2022, spanning the first semester of this school year with an AVID core team. And I just wanted to thank Dr. Del Castillo, Mr. Kennedy, Megan, Bill, Stephanie as building principals, and Mike Kennedy up here who's going to speak a little bit as well too. He's going to provide an overview of the review process, the outcomes, and the recommendations for the program adoption for next school year in a program that we call AVID and AVID Excel. There is a contract that's attached related to some expenses for tonight. So I'm going to share my screen, turn it over to Mr. Kennedy at this time, and then we'll take some questions throughout or at the end.
Right, thank you. So as Dr. Zlemke said, I'm Mike Kennedy, Director of AVID Grant and College and Career Readiness. And tonight I get the honor of telling you a little bit about AVID and AVID Excel, which is something that actually kind of touches on all 3 of those hats that I wear. So we're going to kind of walk through this a little bit. Feel free to ask me questions at the end. But to get us started, I just want to tell you a little bit about what AVID is. So AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. It is a program that is really designed to help students that really need a little bit of an extra push. So we are really big here on looking at various interventions and ways to help our students, and this is another way to do that. So what is AVID and AVID Excel? This is their mission statement. So the mission of AVID is to close the opportunity gap by preparing all students for college and career readiness and success in a global society. They just recently modified this mission statement, which really, encapsulates everything that we do here in Huntley. And before this past December, so really just a couple months ago, it used to just be to preparing all students for college readiness and success in a global society. So they just added the and career piece. And we know that it's really important that we prepare all of our students for college and career success. That's why when I was up here earlier in the year and telling you about our new exciting program, Schoolings, we were able to say that that was such a great program because it not only focused on those students who were interested in going to college, but also focused on those students who were interested in careers. And that is what AVID is going to do. So I was at a professional development thing through AVID, and they kind of gave this analogy. The whole point of AVID is to look at the type of shoes kids are wearing after they get out of high school. It's not if you can wear military boots, you can wear shoes that you're going to be walking around college, you can be wearing work boots, as long as you're not wearing slippers and staying at home, AVID is going to be preparing you for what comes next. So AVID started in 1980. It started with a focus on multilingual students. and it has grown. So now every year they have over 85,000 educators that they train, about 2 million students, and about 65% of their students are low income. 94% of seniors meet college readiness indicators by the various states that they're attached to, and 87% of students make plans to attend post-secondary education. So they have a lot of data that show a lot of success over a long period of time. So along with that, we did our homework because AVID is a big program and it's going to take a lot of work. So we went to professional development, as Dr. Zlemke said. We went to the Summer Institute this past summer. We've done a lot of site visits. We went to Woodstock, Elgin, Harvard, Oswego, and we talked with individuals from Champaign and Wheeling in a virtual environment just to kind of see how they've worked through their implementations. We went to the national conference in December, where it was their launch for that new mission statement, and during that, we really had to focus on the implementation process. We've met regularly with our regional representative. His name is Brent Anderson, and I've attended multiple district director and regional connect sessions, which is just going to build our network so that way we know that we're not having to do this alone. There's a lot of other people who are implementing AVID or have implemented AVID, and we can utilize their resources as we're going through this journey. And then, of course, there are a lot of local districts that already have AVID in place as well. You can see those listed there. So what are some of the benefits of AVID? So AVID is really designed to focus on college and career readiness. So these are some benefits and can-do statements really that students will be able to do by the time they are done with this AVID program. So students will be prepared for more rigorous coursework. That is one of their main goals, is they want to move students who wouldn't typically be in accelerated coursework or honors coursework into more honors or advanced coursework, more advanced placement courses as they move into high school dual credit courses, things like that. So that is really one of their main focuses. Students become leaders in the classroom because within the AVID classroom, they have to actually become leaders. They need to speak. They need to learn how to engage with their peers. Students will have a strong family-like unit. If they are in this program, they create a family bond and they move through as a cohort together. So that is part of this unique circumstance. Students will build towards college and career readiness. Of course, we have the college and career readiness indicators in the state of Illinois that we need to meet. And so by completing this program, students will have more success in those college and career readiness indicators. And then for teachers, they get to utilize all the AVID resources and strategies that are research-based and have been utilized and updated for many years. So this is some information just about AVID in the state of Illinois. It's connected to 35 school districts and 155 actual individual AVID sites throughout the state. There's over 28,000 students, over 4,000 teachers, administrators, and counselors that have trained or been participation in various events. 62% of the students are free and reduced lunch. 97% of the students are college and career ready. They have a 99% graduation rate, and the average GPA of students is 3.3. So again, just a lot of data to show that this program has a long track record of success. So what does AVID do? How does it align to what we're currently doing? AVID and AVID Excel align with current school improvement plan goals. So I've highlighted some of those on there, in that we are going to be looking to get our students making expected growth in reading and math, because through their planning and work in AVID, students should be able to grow in reading and math. They are going to grow in ELA and math performance. And then this also connects directly to the college and career framework, which I'll talk about on the next slide. But really, they focus a lot on professional development. They focus on professional learning. There are direct paths for counselors, principals, teachers, our multilingual students, our multilingual teachers, things like that. So really, no matter what your focus is, there's going to be a professional development track for our teachers in order to be able to prepare these students to follow that AVID curriculum. So talking a little bit more about AVID and how it relates to the college and career framework. Again, one of the main goals is to move the students into more advanced coursework, honors coursework, advanced placement, and dual credit as they move into the high school. And again, those are the communities of practice that they have based upon where our teachers fall and where they need it. This diagram is actually one that I was able to show when I was here couple months ago talking about schooling. And embedded within that image, I don't know if you noticed it, but under the systems of supports, that second bullet point was AVID. So we knew we were doing the research on AVID at that time, and really AVID is a college and career component that is going to lead to more success within our college and career framework. And again, SchoolLinks is going to be that vehicle to kind of help track some of our data, and we can actually use it in the college and career readiness components of AVID as well. So SchoolLinks, again, is going to have connections with AVID as we are moving forward. This is just a chart to show some of the similarities and differences between AVID and AVID Excel. So you've talked about both of these, AVID and AVID Excel. What are they the same? What are they different? So AVID is for all students. So it is for students whether they are a general education student, whether they're a special education student, whether they need intervention. AVID is for all students. AVID Excel elective is only for multilingual students. Get tongue-tied saying AVID and AVID Excel times here. So AVID, again, for all students, AVID Excel is just for multilingual learners. So as we're thinking about, where we're currently at and making sure that all of our multilingual students are making progress, this is going to be one of those things that we're going to look at to be pushing our students a little bit further. And if we're thinking about who is going to be placed into these classes, if we're looking at just the traditional AVID elective, that is kind of the AVID blueprint for what that student looks like. So a GPA of about 2.5 to 3.0. They have math skills that are on target, maybe a little bit low, so they can get brought up. Typically, first-generation college students, they have good attendance and they're involved with school. So again, these are students who have that independent determination. In order to be successful in school, they just might be coming up a little short. And so this program would be able to give them the tools that they need in order to move forward. AVID Excel, for that placement, we're really going to be looking at our multilingual students. So those are going to be students who have been long-term EL students, so students that have been in our EL program for many, many years, and maybe they just haven't gotten the access scores needed in order to exit that EL program yet. So this is kind of for students who have fallen to a 2.0 to 4.2 on the access score. They need a 4.8 to exit. So that's where they can give them that little nudge that they need. So that way when they get to high school, they hopefully won't need those additional supports of the EL program, so they can take those more advanced courses. So let's say a student is in grade 6, they're in the AVID Excel program, and they get that high enough score now because they've had this additional support. They will be able to stay in that AVID Excel program in grade 7 and grade 8 in order to continue to build their skills and make sure that when they get to high school, they are going to be ready to be successful. So I also threw some ideas up there about the curriculum. As you can see, the curriculum between AVID and AVID Excel are almost identical. The only difference is that in the traditional AVID elective, they do what are called tutorial request forms, or TRFs, and that is where a student has to come to their peers and say, I have a problem. And it needs to be schoolwork related, and then they have to address that problem in front of their peers, and their peers question them. Have you thought about it in this way? Think about this. This is similar to this problem that you've done. So that way students can think about it in a different way, and they have to facilitate that conversation in order to actually work through problems in class that they couldn't answer on their own. So it, again, builds that team and builds their public speaking skills and builds that leadership role for them in that environment. For an AVID Excel, those scholar groups is really all about language acquisition. So what it does is it gives challenging articles, it gives poems, it gives sonnets, things like that. And then it gives students sentence stems so that way they can kind of start to break down what that looks like and work through some of that complex language. So other than that, the curriculum for AVID and AVID Excel look very, very similar. So all that college and career, all that success that we're talking about is going to be experienced in both of these environments. So what's it going to look like in terms of implementation? In our first year, we're going to have one section of the AVID elective in grade 6 at Heinemann and one section at Marlowe, and we will run the AVID Excel elective in grades 6, 7, and 8 at Marlowe and Heinemann. So that way we are going to be able to support a majority of our EL students through this program, and we will also build that section of 6th graders. In year 2, that group of 6th graders, that cohort will move up to grade 7, and we'll get a new cohort at grade 6. Again, we'll be running the AVID Excel in grades 6 through 8. And then in year 3, that eighth grade, that seventh grade cohort will move up to eighth grade, sixth grade up to seventh, and then we'll have a new cohort. So again, it just kind of builds on itself after that, and then after that, we'll look into where we go after year 3, collecting our data and seeing all the results. So continuing with that implementation, what is it going to look like? What do we need in order to make it successful? We're going to need 1 full-time FTE dedicated to AVID at each middle school, so a total of 2.0 FTEs. What they're going to be teaching, what their teaching responsibilities will look like is they'll be teaching 3 sections of the AVID Excel elective, AVID in grades 6, 7, and 8. And in year 1, they will have that 1 section of that AVID elective. There'll be 4 teaching periods, and then they'll have 1 release period in that first year only, really to support the launch of AVID, because with AVID you need a site coordinator, and that site coordinator manages what's called their CCI, their coaching instrument, so that way we can continue to build on our growth, and we can use that as a tool to assess how we're doing, meeting the goals of AVID and making sure that we're making progress. They'll also help all the other teachers, making sure that they're utilizing the WICR strategies and AVID strategies in their classroom, and just basically being the leader of AVID in the building. So they'll really be that site coordinator. They'll be that person with the boots on the ground and the real experience and expertise around that AVID program. So we recommend that you follow or accept the contract for AVID and AVID Excel and move that forward or for approval at the February 9th Board of Education meeting. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions from the committee?
You mentioned the contract. What type of terms does that entail, cost, or just description of what that requirements would be?
Sure. So it is a 3-year contract, and in that contract, we are getting access to their curriculum, we're getting access to their professional development, we're getting access to their library of tools and tricks and everything that they've had for multiple years. So it's a 3-year contract, and we have access to all of that in that time, and that is $118,525, I believe, in that price range for the 3-year contract.
Okay. And then, I guess, is it kind of like a restorative type program, or can it be kind of for everyone? I kind of heard it described both ways in the presentation.
Sure. So basically what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be working with our 5th grade principals, and we're going to be kind of looking at that blueprint of what a student looks like, you know, based upon the AVID protocols. And we're going to try to figure out who these students are in our 5th grade, because GPA, we can't utilize that 2.5 to 3.0 for a GPA for our 5th graders. So what does that actually look like? What does this student look like in the 5th grade level? And then what we'll do is we're going to send out invitations to those students, and we're going to explain to them what this program looks like and feels like, and it'll be student choice and family choice to see if they want to participate into this program.
I think maybe think about it like this. Like, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is you're looking at your middle to low end meets that can push them up to high end meets or exceeds, and your students that are in that approaching the meets and exceeds category. It's kind of like your bubble student that is doing well. They're successful in school, but there's room for growth, and the structure and strategies that are embedded in this program can accelerate their learning and give them the strategies that they can take off on their own.
Yep. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, that's the way to describe it. It's that bubble student, that kid who, you know, is showing a lot of success in the classroom, but could definitely use a little bit more because they have the potential to be in some of those honors courses and more advanced coursework.
Yeah. And if there was such a thing as a student who wasn't particularly tapped on the shoulder per se, wanted to participate, is there such a thing as not being able to take the course if you wanted to?
So, I mean, we are going to be limited on space a little bit. So in our first year, we are going to hold that to about 30 students in that each cohort at each school, right? So we are going to have to limit that, and that's why AVID does have a protocol for doing that. They have an application process, they have a student interview process that would be a part of this as well. So those are all aspects of the program that students would have to go through.
I mean, I think just in total transparency, there are some structural challenges that we face in middle school that we faced forever. This doesn't, this is an exploratory class period. So a student is going to want this, is going to not do one of their exploratories.
Right.
And so there's a trade-off that is going to be a part of the conversation with families of, your student is here, we can take them here with this program, but, foods, you're going to be giving something.
Right, right.
And that's one of the challenges we face in anything we try and change at the middle school level is where does it fit, based on the limitations that schedule gives us.
Impressive, you read my third question.
I've been working on that for 5 years.
And then the last question I had is like from 6th to 7th to 8th, is it envisioned that people would take it 3 years in a row, or just one of the three?
Yes, if you're in this program, you are in this program. I mean, that is the vision, is that these students are going to be involved in this program in grade 6, they're going to see the success, and they're going to continue in grade 7, and then they'll continue into grade 8. This program, I mean, really from all the examples that we've seen throughout and talking with them, it's not designed for students to just come and go. It is designed to have that cohort that follows them through. And then after grade 8, it's designed again to continue into the high school level. That's just kind of what the design of AVID is. Yeah. So, but if, one student drops and we have a spot open in grade 7 and the kid says, hey, I really want to do this. I didn't think I'd want to do it in grade 6. But I really think I can benefit from it now. We have that availability. You also have that ability to take on a couple new students each year if you'd like to do that.
Okay. And then my last question is a repeat of the first. I've totally lost what you said on the cost of the contract.
So it's $118,525 for the contract.
Okay. Per year.
Total for the 3-year contract. Yep, that is the total. Yep, over 3 years.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I'll remember it now.
Got it, not a problem. Other questions?
Can I ask a question? So you had mentioned AVID and AVID Excel are really no different. Why, with the rollout for like year 1, only 6th grade for AVID and 6th or 8th for Excel?
So that's a great question. Really, it comes down to space and making sure that we have a quality rollout of the program and making sure that we stay focused on it. So AVID Excel is really built in grades 6, 7, and 8. That is, it's only built for the middle school level. And so it's designed to be implemented and kind of all throughout that. Whereas AVID, the traditional elective, is built to build over time. So we are going to build it up in grade 6 and then continue to roll up. But the AVID Excel, it has designated curriculum for each of those various grade levels. And it does not extend beyond the middle school level because, again, that goal is that kids will be able to exit their needing those EL services by the time they get out of middle school if they are involved in this program.
Now, I'll add to that, Mr. Craddy. I think you saw last year where we believed Marlowe was going to be facing a needs improvement designation because of our English learner population not meeting their appropriate growth. We're seeing that with Heinemann now. This is a part of our plan to address that because as our community is changing, the English language learners that are some of the greatest volume of move-ins that are coming in. So we need to do something rather aggressive anyway to ensure that we're not teetering on that edge every single year. And this is a proven research-based program that can help support that accelerated learning to ensure that they have the skills and are being pushed appropriately in addition to their language acquisition supports to keep us away from that line and more importantly, keep them growing.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, thank you for your presentation, first of all. The parameters for this program, is this coming from AVID or is this coming from?
That's the AVID blueprint. So that is their protocols for what type of student fits this niche of a program, yes.
I think I'm struggling a little bit. Let me just start. I mean, I think they've got some great ideas here, and I like things that you stated in the presentation, but I'm a little bit confused about how we're talking about preparing for college and career, and you were speaking about whether you're in, going out into the workforce, you're putting on your work boots or your business shoes, to go to a meeting. I mean, and now we're saying that students are going to be selected based on their GPA that are in here, but what about the students that are struggling, that are maybe on the lower end of that? Is there an avenue of AVID for them that helps bring them up?
So we will take the blueprint from AVID, but every district made it its own. So we're thinking, when Dr. Rose says those kids in the bubble, it's not only GPA, but it's also, we're looking into students that were exposed to trauma, students that have a special needs, and students that are in interventions. So we are creating our profile of the students that will be AVID, and it's not only academic needs, but it could be social emotional needs. So it's a profile that we're going to create, and they have a process when the kids go to an interview, and so we are going to have our own profile for AVID students in District 158. What AVID gives us is like many options, the blueprint for how we're going to qualify our students, but we are going to make that our own, and we're going to create our own profile.
Okay, so we're not.
If I could just add to that a little bit, like what we've seen in our track record in terms of our student performance data in the last number of years is, especially this year, and you'll see it in the data presentation as long as the data continues to trend the way that we're seeing it, we've had some success, really good success of moving our students that are in the red and yellow of that MTSS pyramid down towards the green. Where we're not seeing as much success as we feel we should is getting students from the green into the blue. And so this is your students are a good student to how we accelerate that learning, whereas the red and the yellow, there's a good and strengthening MTSS program that are there to support their academic needs to push them this way. But that middle student a lot of times is the student that doesn't have that just structure to drive that learning outside of a teacher recognizing the need to give them a push.
Right, but I do like, the idea of taking our students who are maybe struggling a little bit more and giving them some of these skills to, come to their peers and improve on their public speaking. And I just want to make sure that we don't forget, that population of students, and only focus on, like a specific group, because we've got a smaller number, like you said. ESL, the AVID Excel will start for 6th, 7th, and 8th.
I would, I understand what you're saying, but we don't forget about those students. Right. We actually spend probably 70+% of our time and effort focused on those students. And AVID is, Mr. Kennedy mentioned being a very prescriptive program. Mm-hmm. AVID has walls around their structure that are like 50 miles wide. Like you can't penetrate it and make it change. It's not permeable. This is what they do. This is where their wheelhouse of success is. And to an extent, we have to fit into that structure to drive it. And their focus is on this type of student where they've shown and have a proven 40-year track record of moving those students. We have other structures that are focusing on the students that you're describing. It's not us not focusing on them at all. This is another avenue of supporting a student that we can see the need for that support, and we can really make some hay in terms of moving them along.
Right, let me clarify, I wasn't saying leaving them behind. I'm talking in terms of the benefits of this program.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you.
It would be nice for that, but again, you said the program is set up in a specific way, and it has these.
But I think what you're saying is transferable is the skills that we're advocating for is why we need AVID. Our most struggling learners need that as well.
Yeah.
And we totally agree with you. We're attempting to navigate that through a different avenue. Okay. It just isn't this program. But I agree with you. We're on the same page about we want all of our students to have these skills. Right. This program is a specific targeted group of students that it supports.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, this isn't being done at the exclusion of others. There's programs for interventions that the district has in place for other students to hopefully get them to this point. But not everybody's at the same footing, so you can't just throw everybody in the same program because this is not program for people in that, wide range of category to try and raise those people up. We have other programs in place for whether it's at the high level or at the where kids who are struggling. So.
And it's exciting to get to this point. We've been talking about AVID since, I think, my second or third year as the principal of the high school. And it was about, as Mr. Kennedy said, this is a heavy lift. He's been working on this since July 5th, his first day is my assumption. And to this point today, it was about capacity in terms of having a district level oversight of a person that can dedicate this much time to it. We haven't had the opportunity to add a role like Mr. Kennedy because our focus has been in a lot of other places. So this has been 8 years in the making, and we've watched a lot of our peers adding this and having great success with this program. I'm very excited about what it can bring. I really appreciate all the attention that you've been able to give to it, Mr. Kennedy, and your leadership. And I know the high school, but excited for the future, but the middle schools are chomping at the bit to get going with this now. So thank you.
Yeah, which that did lead to my question about the peers you've observed and spoken with. I mean, who out there has used this the longest? I mean, what's the longest time frame somebody's utilized this?
I'm gonna say of the folks we talked with, probably Elgin has probably been in it the longest, and we talked to them because they are a national demonstration school, so they are nationally recognized as, being able to follow the AVID blueprint and being able to have a long track record of success. Harvard is moving in that direction as well, so we've communicated with them. Woodstock is, I believe, in their 4th or 5th year right now, and they've just recently rolled it from the middle school to the high school. So it was kind of interesting to hear all of their stories because where we are at now, they were either at recently or they've been at and have had a long-term amount of success with that.
Right, so you've seen their tangible results that they've demonstrated to you, and that's where you see the value in this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would just add, those visits, the energy in the room, when you walk into an AVID classroom, you can feel the energy in the room in an AVID classroom. It is really exciting. The kids have a great sense of ownership when you walk in, and I think that was the one thing that wherever we were at, minus the virtual experiences, there's a different feel when you are going down the hallway into the classroom. The students really had that sense of ownership. They circled up. I know Mike mentioned what they refer to as a TRF, and when they get together and say, you know what, I don't know how to write the science report, and they all put their heads together, you want to see that everywhere. And I really thought it was really amazing how the kids handled that, request for tutoring from their peers and the public speaking skills and the way that they, interacted with one another. It was really exciting to see. We're excited to bring it here to both middle schools.
That's actually a springboard into my question, I guess. I'm trying to understand if this is filling a gap in our current instructional capabilities. Why does it take this program to have that kind of energy in a middle school classroom? Like, I just don't understand why you need a third party to do that. Isn't it inherently part of the educational process today? It just seems like that's a kind of natural question to ask, like, hey, unless we have a third party to do that, we can't have energy in the classroom.
That's the question of the day. That's the best question, because we started with that very question, right in July with the vision from, Dr. Del Castillo last year, and the group. And that's really what we tried to answer throughout, is there's such an intentionality about this program and some specificity about looking at that specific student, of who we are looking for, why we are looking at that student, to take them from where they're at. And I think Dr. Rowe did a great job explaining where that student might be academically in the green, to move them deeper into that color or into the blue, but really that intentionality of that cohort of kids. And Mike, can you talk a little bit about the training, and then once we train, not just the FTE that we're hiring, but the group of the teachers, and then how that spreads out? Might speak to Mr. Daly's question a little bit more.
Yeah, so the training is really built around learning those AVID strategies. And these students are going to be spread throughout the 6th grade teams at each school. So other teachers will start to see some of these students pop up in their class being leaders. They'll see these teachers utilizing these strategies in the classroom, things like that. And we can actually utilize some of those skills to help, guide some future structures as well. So I mean, it's not going to say that this is going to go and be a school-wide AVID thing, but in reality, a lot of these skills can permeate through the classroom, through the training that these teachers are going to be able to get through the AVID program.
And I think I said the same question. And I think and it was years ago that I saw it when Dr. Schlichter and I toured the Hampshire AVID classroom. It's a prescriptive way of studying, approaching your content through almost like like this step, then this step, then this step, that we don't get to in the typical classroom. It's a secondary classroom. You're talking content-focused folks, building a classroom environment of caring and relationship type of energy and fun. Whereas we're talking about how do I approach my learning through this almost like a recipe of success. And it's proprietary, it's theirs, and it's been proven. As a traditional educator, it's not part of the training that I get to come to a classroom. It's a new level of professional learning that I have to go learn. And because of how restrictive they are about how you can do it and how many people you can send, I think that's where the third party makes sense. It's a slow roll training of how do we bring this to a classroom. And as Mr. Kennedy said, some of those strategies could permeate throughout the building. But targeting the specific learner, how do you do this? It's almost like a proprietary software that you have to go through their own little system in order to access it. And I don't know that's a great answer, but that's the reason why it has to be the third parties. It's not something that in your typical education prep college coursework is a part of that program.
Okay.
I'm struggling with the answer too. I know what you're getting at, but
it's a tough one. I think
the track record is hard to argue with the data that we're seeing in other schools.
Yeah.
And one of our biggest struggles in our student growth is this population of students.
Yeah, but you appreciate the spirit of my question.
100%.
Isn't that part of what we should be doing every day? Why is there a gap in the current capabilities, and what do we do to shore that up so it's not necessary for a third party to come in and I mean, then is there another target for another third party to do the group between there and the next quartile and then the top quartile? I feel like it just seems like it's a natural thing that we should have skills and capabilities in the district to do right now. So that's my one question. You can appreciate where I'm coming from when I ask it. It sounds like you guys are asking it as well. I'm not entirely satisfied with the reason why it's different, but I'll leave it for others to opine on the differences there. But then the last one is, it sounds like the profile of the student is under development. How do you know you'll have participation? Is it we have to buy it and then ask people to join? How do you know how many people will be a part of it? And if so, it seems like a high price tag to evaluate interest in a program.
So we've been running data on our student population to know where our students are falling. So we've run the data on our current 6th, 7th, and 8th graders to know, based upon these parameters, how many students were to fall into those parameters, essentially. And then in trying to figure out where it's going to fit into the schedule, we looked at how many of those students are involved in music, how many of those students are receiving other interventions, how many of those students are, so we kind of took that pool of students and just kind of kept looking at all those various parameters. And we found out that there is actually a rather large population of students in our current 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that could actually benefit from this. So we are excited to be going to our 5th grade teams and being able to show them all this data and what this program will be able to do for their students.
What if they all say no? Because it sounds elective. It just seems like it's a high price tag to ask someone, have to pay to then ask if you're willing to join a program. How do you get an indication before you have to sign a 3-year contract and hire 2 FTEs that there'll be participation? I get the demographic seems so wide. I'm not surprised that if you have sort of a middle learner on the bubble of proficiency, I feel like just the way statistics work, you're going to have a pretty big population there to begin with. How do you know that they're going to sign up for it?
Well, you guys think you're going to have to limit it.
We're probably going to have to limit it. I mean, talking with our peers around the area who've had other people doing this.
That's what you have to go by, is what other districts' experience have been, and it's a well-accepted program, so you're most likely not going to run into that kind of issue. It's more about more kids wanting to be in it than we can actually service. Is most likely the result that's going to occur. I don't look at it as you're throwing out money as a test balloon when that's why I asked the question, how long have these people been doing it? What's their success rate to make sure that we're not just jumping off, trying to, start something brand new here that nobody else has tried. That's obviously not the case based on what you stated. So I personally don't see that as a risk involved in it. It's not a cheap price tag, but it's, it's just under 40 grand a year as far as what it costs, and then it'll be the cost of the 2 FTEs, correct?
Correct.
Yep. So it becomes a matter of, okay, weigh the cost. Is there value to it? Is there results that matter to the district? Is that a worthwhile proposition? I mean, you have to evaluate here. My personal concern is not participation in entering into a contract. I'm not worried about people and kids being involved in it.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I had one, and my colleagues have taken all the grading questions that I had. But going back to the numbers game, from a population standpoint of the 2 middle schools, we have a larger population in Marlowe, and yet we're going to cap it at 30 for each school. And so my concern is actually the other direction of not if we have no participation, but if we have the excess because of the numbers of students there that we can't fill the demand. That's kind of where my concern is. And I know this is the first year rollout, so there's a little bit of trial and error or
of course,
tepidness of putting the toes in the water type of thing. But at the same time, we do have a larger numbers population from a student perspective.
Of course, yes. I mean, Marlowe has an extra 500 students or so in it, right? So trying to make sure that we can provide this program with the fidelity that it needs to be successful, especially in this first year. But yes, that's definitely something that we looked at and we had long conversations about as well, because we obviously, going back to your statement is, are we going to have too many students involved in this in order to cap that? And so we just, we're going to have to monitor that and see where we're at moving forward and use that, and think about the space and the time and all those other constraints that exist during a school day.
Mm-hmm. And this is, does this replace another program? Maybe that's the question that I should be asking. I don't get the sense that this does. This is an enhancement that we're inserting to say, hey, we're helping this tier of students because we're trying to address, or we're in the process of addressing these other tiers, but here's a level of students that we have an opportunity to help as well.
Correct, yes. This is not replacing anything. It is a new program to come in to help that tier of students, and we still have our MTSS intervention time and space for students in order to get all the other interventions and support that they need throughout the day.
Yep. Thank you very much.
And just to add, I think what this fits is something that I personally have seen for a long time, I thought, in the district, where we have the old adage of meets and exceeds, trying to get more of our kids from just meeting and getting into the exceed. And I think, isn't this where you're targeting? That's, where I've seen for years where I wanted to see us raise that bar. That's how you raise the bar.
Yeah.
You get more kids who are kind of in the middle and push them a little harder, get them focused a little differently, and you get them up into that exceed.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is, thinking about those categories, yes, that's definitely the focus of that, is getting those kids from the meet to that.
Any other questions?
I just have one more.
Okay.
How do existing educators in these grade levels feel about the introduction of a new program to support them? Is it well received by current teaching staff?
Yeah, I'd say we have started rolling this out. We've been having conversations, and our 2 middle school principals have been really instrumental in making sure that our teams are on board, but we're already looking at who those team of teachers are going to be, who are going to be supporting this, and, looking at who that right person, as Dr. Zemke said, to be in the classroom, really leading that charge for each building would be.
Okay.
Any others?
I think I have one more.
All right.
Sorry. Is there, I'm looking at the contract, and there's library package and curriculum library set. Is there an opportunity to see what their curriculum, what is considered curriculum for AVID?
So as Dr. Rose said, it is prescriptive. You got to buy into this. So we can't really look too much at it ahead of time, just being honest, but we've definitely been able to talk to our partners, and as we've gone on some of these site visits, they've been able to show us, the work that students are doing, and we've been able to see some of those materials and know how they would be able to help our students in the classroom. So while we don't actually have access to it, we have been able to kind of peek behind that curtain when we've done some of these site visits to really dig into some of that and know what we're getting ourselves into.
I'll just say it for the sake of saying it, and maybe you disagree with this, Tony, but, we can't see it. We're not sure who's going to be interested in it, but trust us, it's going to be helpful, and pay the price of admission. You can see what's behind the curtain. By the way, the results are going to be great. Just saying that out loud for the sake of saying it. It seems like an odd barrier to entry to a program that has such great results, that has such a, barrier to entry, I guess, just to get into. You can't see it. We won't tell you what's inside of it. We can't show it to your staff. But trust us, it's worth it. That's just, I'm gonna say it.
Yeah, it's a tough, 100%. I can go back on PMA. Art, I go back 15 years. That was one of my biggest gripes, is at that time, they had proprietary software that did projections, and we could not see behind curtain. And it disturbed me quite a bit. I had a lot of problems with it. I get what you're saying. It's not comforting by any stretch of the imagination from that standpoint, to operate in that fashion. But, again, these people probably feel that what they put together is, if they left it, completely out of the bottle, then everybody's doing it, and it takes away their market strategy to be able to, sell education, in the manner that they're doing it. So I absolutely not a comfortable feeling in that sense. I'm going to rely on my decision personally on what they've observed in the field with others utilizing it, and how they feel that's affecting it, and just the idea of, I get the idea of, the thing I do get is, and what I see out of that program is the focus that what they're bringing, whatever the curriculum, the nuts and bolts of the curriculum, there's a strategy of the focus that they're providing in those classrooms that's obviously making a difference. And that's, again, does seem like a steep price to pay, possibly, but if it generates the results that they're seeing out there with these other districts, it's something that I think.
Well, make a comparison on the academic side. If we think back to when we embarked on the Medical Academy and Engineering Academy and the Project Lead the Way coursework, there was a series of 4 courses on each side, the biomedical as well as engineering. And Project Lead the Way is a nationally renowned program that is also, you must go through their specific training in order to be Project Lead the Way certified, air quote certified, in order to teach their classes. And you don't get access to that until you go through that coursework. So a lot of what we're going to be arming our educators with are days of professional learning prior to setting them out in front of our kids. And Project Lead the Way has been, that's sort of a model of one of the most successful things we've got going. That said, if you prefer, we can come back with a little bit more of a try and build an example of what some of that the structures might be in the classroom as an example to show you, and then you can not put it on consent, put it on action next week and try and get a little bit more information of like how the studying structures are made, maybe within the form of a partner school that we collaborate with, I'm sure would give us access to some of those things so you can visualize it. But, you know, as Mr. Quagliano said, I can tell you that, you know, Dr. Swimke, Dr. Del Castillo, Mr. Kennedy, and Ms. Bagby and team and the principals have put quite a bit of research into this, you know, 6+ months of site visits and action. And, you know, I understand the question, Mr. Daly, and I wish we had a better answer for you at the moment. I think that we can provide that next week and put it on an action item. But, you know, I feel good about where we're going, or we wouldn't be here in front of you tonight, I can tell you that. Because there's certain aspects in the educational world that you have to go to the training to get it, and sometimes the training is proprietary. It's a hard pill to swallow, I completely understand. We can come back with a little bit of a different angle if it makes you feel more comfortable.
Mr. Guerin, you and your committee need to decide what you're going to do here. As far as how you're going to throw it forward or whatever, but you should probably come to that decision.
Well, committee members, I feel like I heard enough that I would recommend that we move it forward. What do you guys think?
Actually, I have a couple more questions, but they're hopefully really quick ones. Can you describe what the depth of the training is for the teachers that go through this program? What do they get? Not what do they get, but how much training do they get through this program?
It's a 3-day in-person training. So as soon as we essentially pay and we get access to the curriculum, so we can actually start looking at it, thinking about it, planning ahead. And then the curriculum that they actually go through during those 3 days is going to be focused on their curricular area. So if you're a math teacher going through it, then they are going to focus on math strategies, utilizing AVID and the AVID strategies, trying to marry those two things together in order to make your students more successful in the math classroom. If you're going to be teaching the AVID elective, they're going to go through everything you need in order to be successful at doing those tutorial request forms, getting them college and career readiness, going through those various strategies. So it is a 3-day deep dive training into all of these, and they are specific based upon which class you are teaching. So our person who's doing the AVID Excel and the AVID elective would have to go through 2 separate trainings, one for the AVID elective, one for the AVID Excel, to make sure that they have that depth of understanding of each program to support all the students.
So this person would go, this person, we would be hiring 2, so they would need to go through both trainings.
Correct.
So they would get a 3-day for one and then 3 days for the Excel.
Correct, yes. That is, you know, talking again about that prescriptive strategy, that is where they take you for 3 days and really drill this home of everything that you need in order to be successful in that classroom. And then even throughout the year, there are multiple times for teachers to connect via Zoom. They have multiple connect sessions, so that way they can work through various strategies together. And those are at no extra cost. If we are a part of the AVID family, then we get to take advantage of those opportunities to continue to build our network with others and continue to get professional development throughout the year.
So these trainings will be for internal staff or?
Correct.
Okay. Trying to envision all of this in my head.
So the curriculum is set then for the teacher goes through these trainings, and the curriculum is set for them. They're not coming up with.
It is all set for them. It is prescriptive. So they do not, so like if you think about a traditional conference, you might say, I want to go to this, and I want to go to this. This is, I am a math teacher teaching AVID. I am going to go to that community of practice, is what they call it, community of practice. And so you don't get any flexibility on where you're going throughout the day. It is very prescribed on what you're going to do, how you're going to get those strategies, and ultimately how you're going to end up being successful at the end.
Just to add, I think the real value of AVID is the professional development of the strategies, right? Like the same way that we have reading specialists or, you know, EL teachers that are very focused and specific in those strategies to reach out to that specific group of students. That's what AVID does. strategies to collaborate, the strategies to, just very graphic organizers. We have seen that, and it's research-based strategies, and we can see the data of the other districts around us. And I think that the value is in the professional development. They're very specific in the professional development. There's professional development for site directors, professional development for the coordinators, the teachers, the principal. There's one for the superintendent. So they're very specific in how, with those strategies, they will reach to that group of students. And the idea is that when the teachers have, learned those strategies, they collaborate with other teachers, and that's the way that it gets sometimes school-wide. So, but I think the value is on those strategies that are very, very specific in, I will say, for that group of students.
Correct. It's very prescribed.
That's my word. Very, extremely prescribed. Even the number of teachers that go through the training, what trainings they're gonna follow and they're gonna attend. And we were in one of those trainings, and we were able to go through the system that AVID has, and we were in a group of 4, and then how we're gonna collaborate with other groups, and just the strategies are very specific to reach the group of students that we're looking to support.
Okay, so you know what's gonna come with my next question. You walk me through then, if this is prescribed and this is very regimented, how would this work with a student who has an IEP or 504? Is there that flexibility within there? If it's this prescribed, is there that flexibility for accommodations that students may need?
Absolutely, yes.
It is, okay.
For English learners and for students with IEPs and 504s, yes.
Thank you.
Gentry, Mr. Troy?
Well, I think where I'm kind of landing on this is I think it's kind of when you think about what makes people successful, it's that, if you don't have the framework to know what you have to do to be successful, just some vehicle to establish the framework to say, these are the things you need to learn, these are things you need to be able to do, and then here's how you go about doing them. Those type of programs I think are very valuable. So it's kind of like a learning how to learn program that helps everything else. And I think as far as like the cost and the market credibility of the product, I've seen enough to believe it's a safe bet at this point to go forward. And cognizant of the cost, but frankly, I don't think the cost is that overly material in light of what I could see as the upside, so I'm in support of it.
Do you have anything to add, Mr. Troy, or?
What he said.
Okay, great.
No, I've heard positive things about AVID. I'm familiar with the program, not personally, but just as a third-party observer, I guess. And it's, I've heard good things about it. So when I saw this, I was excited to see that this is something that's arrived here or is being brought to our level for approval. But the presentation enhanced what I was aware of. So thank you very much for doing that. And I concur with Mr. Gentry's thoughts on cost-wise. I share Mr. Daly's apprehension. Is that a good word? Is that a fair word? Okay, I see nodding. I share the apprehension part of it, but I think that the benefits outweigh the risk here. And for that reason, I'm okay with moving this ahead.
So then, unless anyone objects, I would propose that we move it ahead.
Doesn't matter, we can't.
That's your three.
It's your committee.
We're
It's all matters.
You've got to.
We all will have our chance to object at the, Board of Ed.
And then we'll move forward to the Finance Committee.
Okay, item 7 is, Finance Committee.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for answering all our questions, and actually thank you, Board, for a nice, robust discussion, educational item. It's good to have those. 7.1 is our, Mr. Altmeyer, Mr. Altmeyer discussed 7.1, and so we have our payables, our purchase orders and press checks, disbursements listed in the agenda. Is there any questions related to those items? Mr. Gentry or Mr. Creddy?
Not here.
Any questions from any of the other board members? None on the committee. Now we'll move those forward to the board meeting for approval. 7.2, the monthly fiscal updates. Mr. Altmeyer.
Thank you very much. In front of you, you do have the monthly fiscal updates. Nothing really to add to the memo. I do have a few things outside of the memo that within the past few days I've received notification about. I informed the board about the opportunity for the recovery of excise taxes with our propane buses and the fuel. And the excise tax opportunity is 50 cents per gallon of LPG. That's the propane gas that we use moving forward. And so I did have a conversation with the IRS. They actually do that now. You fill out the application and then they call you and they actually interview you for about 20 or 30 minutes. And they ask for my audit reports and they actually make sure that we have a propane tank and propane buses. So it's actually kind of good. So the good news is after a discussion, we were approved to go ahead and file for excise taxes, and we were also approved to go back to FY21 and FY22 to recapture the excise tax opportunity that we did not apply for back then. So that would approximate about $35,000. And so we are going through that process right now, completing those tax returns. So I did want to make the board aware of that opportunity, so that's good. Another opportunity is I did hear from our financial advisor of PMA as well as our underwriter. We had a quick call because interest rates over the past several days have gone in the right direction. And why am I talking about this? Because I think we all remember that while we restructured the wall only about a month or so ago, but in September when we passed the parameters resolution, the parameters resolution wasn't just for the wall, it was for the Series 2014 debt of about $7.5 million. And that parameters resolution is still out there and good through March 15th. So if the rates are right and the opportunity presents itself, we may have an opportunity to act before that date. But that date obviously is approaching quickly. So Mr. Quigliano and Mr. Gentry, we will be setting up a meeting to kind of discuss those things with the financial advisor and the underwriter, Eric and Bob, respectively. So, and for those who don't remember what the parameters resolution was, well, that enabled key members of the board, Tony, Mr. Gentry, and Mr. Quigliano, and myself, to go ahead and act on behalf of the district within those parameters of that document that we approved on September 15th. So that's the parameters resolution. So that's good news there. So stay tuned on that. We might be able to save $400,000 in total debt service on approximately $7 million of outstanding Series 2014 debt, if we go that route. And lastly, and I talk about this with operational efficiency, Doug and I and the team were always looking for additional grants and things to help us along the way. And the district working with almost the same group of districts for which we applied for our electric buses. It's the Bus to Grid initiative group. There's a lot of Justice 40 school districts that are part of this group. As a group, they are looking for additional federal funding to support solar and Bus to Grid. And within that additional funding request, they would like to create like a statewide microgrid. And I love it when Doug explains all the technical details. So I'm going to have him talk to you a little bit about a microgrid, not too much, just a little bit. But we're always looking for opportunities moving forward because to date, we know we're still going to have to buy some additional charging stations. To date, we're building an infrastructure to support 12 electric buses, and we only have 4 on the way. So if we can get additional funding to cover, well, the other 8 that we could put on the lot, that would be great, as well as this microgrid concept. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Rancasa.
Try to be quick. A microgrid basically is like the next step in our evolution as a school district. We generate power on site. We don't have a place to store it. Microgrid, you would generate power and store it. And if you could use it as consider it, one of the new terms out there is resiliency. If there was an outage, we would have power. The other thing is we could automate the idea of storing that power and then selling it when the price is more advantageous back to the grid. And it could also help us, slam our demand charges down even further than the things we've already done, which is, I'll talk about our costs on energy. The last 12 months, we've done a lot. And, so there are financial advantages to that. It's just that, we have to really strongly look at the cost, because it's on the East Coast, West Coast, they're already doing it. Their price of energy is like 4 times what it is in the Midwest. It's, something we gotta look at.
Thank you, Doug. And so with that, we'll keep the board apprised on the progress of that. There will be flexibility in this. It's not like we have to do whatever the group does. We have flexibility for the needs that we have and how we can support the overall goal and initiative for which we were applying. It'll benefit not only the state and these other districts, but it'll also benefit District 158 and the community. So more good news there. So we will keep the board apprised. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any other questions on those items and or anything on the fiscal memo.
First, I don't see anything jumping out at me on the month's reports at all.
But just out of curiosity, on the microgrid, where would the storage be and what form would it take?
I asked that question some years ago when we were commissioning our existing equipment, and I was told what it would be is, in simple terms, think of semi-trailers parked out in front of our solar panels. They'd be full of batteries.
Okay. Gotcha.
For the record, Mark and I spoke about that, we weren't excited about that, and I'm not interested in doing that.
Not too excited about that.
That's why I said preliminary, we have lots of flexibility of our in and out, how we engage here.
Trailers get driven away, so.
Well, we could decorate it.
Yeah, and we do have other opportunities to continue to participate as part of this, hopefully this additional funding that may come down the pipeline, from chargers to additional electric buses. And we could focus on the bus to grid initiative versus a trailer full of batteries. So as we get more information, and it might be something different now than a trailer, who knows?
Well, that
container.
exceeds my expectations.
Yes, so there will be flexibility, I promise, so we will keep the board apprised.
Greg, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Anybody on the board really do his monthly fiscal update? Okay, 7.3 is the, that was for informational only, so 7.3 is the revenue and expenditures report. Mr. Altmeyer, anything to highlight?
Thank you. Yeah, just a few things to highlight, because when you do look at this, the big picture here, the financial executive summary for the 7 months is showing that we're running and trending an operating deficit of $2.9 million with a budget of $252,000 and an all funds deficit of $7.1 million. Well, the reason primarily being here is because on the federal revenue side, you can see we've only recognized 14% of the revenues, because the majority of all of those revenues on the federal side are ESSER funding and IDEA funding and ARP IDEA funding and ARP, and those are all revenues received on a reimbursement basis. So as we spend those items, we have to apply for that funding, and when we receive that funding from the state, through the state, we then recognize those fundings. So that's the reason you're primarily seeing some of the numbers you're seeing. On the all fund side, you're seeing a very large deficit. Well, simply because based on the timing of when we pay bond and interest payments. And if you look at page 2 of your financial executive summary, we've got that very nice section there of non-salary major cash expenditures. And the very first one is U.S. Bank bonds, for which we paid $7.9 million in December, because those bonds are due in the first week of January. So with that, we continue to trend appropriately with budget. On the monthly insurance claims, I noted this, at the last meeting we had, insurance claims for the month of December spiked up to 1.29 million, one of the highest months, or the highest month we have seen to date. At this point in time, I do not have a full, complete picture of where we are for the month of January, since January just is closing. We're in the middle of closing January right now. But fortunately, we continue to track within budget, barely track within budget for health insurance. And then on the dashboard side, one of the only items really for me of concern is Medicaid. And Medicaid, typically we're collecting $700,000 to $900,000 a year in Medicaid. In year to date, payments are just not coming in from Health and Family Services. I can assure you, we are doing the things we need to do that we've always done, to file our Medicaid reimbursement claims, and we're tracking where we think we should be. As you can see, last year, year to date, it was also very low at 93,000, but we've got several calls into HFS as well as our third-party provider for Medicaid to, we'll try to get to the bottom of it. Why are we not seeing payments coming in? So I do know that CMS and HFS are going through, they have submitted a SPA, and that SPA stands for State Plan Amendment. They've submitted that state plan amendment to CMS at the federal level, that's the Center for Medicaid Services. And so they are making changes with how Medicaid will be reimbursed to school districts, and we're really not sure if this delay in payment right now is related to where they are with approval and passing of that state plan amendment. But we'll get to the bottom of it. So we're looking into that. Other than that, no real material concerns at this point. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
And Treasury report. So we're getting all these wide ranges of interest rates. There's probably a little bit more money management going on these days with the rates we're dealing with.
It's looking really good, yeah. Yeah, it's about time. We're starting to get a little interest, yeah.
Right. So what, I mean, I'm thinking we obviously probably didn't have it. I mean, from a budgeted standpoint, our interest, I can't remember much interest income, but we should probably exceed that. Right?
Oh, yeah, per the dashboard, we're already at 124% of what we budgeted for interest earnings. And so based on trend, we're going to end up the year in pretty good shape on interest earnings. The hope is that we can continue that into FY24 for sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I went past the dashboard too quickly. There, I was looking at the detail.
Yeah, it's the last item on the top.
Yep, I got it.
Yeah, so.
All right, yeah.
Is there additional opportunity there in terms of like taking the seasonality of the cash flows into consideration and getting kind of longer term deposit type?
Yeah, we do just that. We look at our cash flow over the year, and we know we have a good estimate of when state revenues are coming in, when categoricals are coming in, how we receive our real estate taxes. So we have a monthly cash flow and outflow, obviously the whole cash flow, that monitors how we can ladder our investments.
Yep.
What's kind of holding us up a little bit right now is, well, for the last several years, we've done these forward rate locks, right? And these forward rate locks require us to set aside, $10, $11, $12 million until October,
right?
Until we actually lock, not lock, until we actually close on that refunding. Now, that being said, we are investing that appropriately through that period of time. We are, and this past one, we're getting a pretty good interest rate on. So 2 years ago, well, not so much.
Right. Yeah.
But it does kind of lock up our cash. If we wanted to do even a longer term investment, I can't because I don't have it.
Right.
Hope that
makes sense.
Yeah. Any further questions, Mr. Altmeyer, on his revenue and expenditure report? Ready? No? Okay, rest of the board? No, that was for information. We move on to 7.4, which is our revenue contracts. How many do we have there? Two? It is contracts. Softball, basketball. Baseball. It is baseball, I'm sorry. Okay, so is there any, these are both adrenaline fundraising, any questions, concerns related to these two fundraisers? We'll move those forward to the board for approval. And we can move on to item 8, which is building and grounds. Mr. Troy.
Thank you very much.
Actually, quick question before I delve in. When we do these revenue contracts, and they say this is what we expect to make, how successful are these?
Fairly, we don't really, I have to be really honest, it's not like we monitor and track But we do see the revenues coming in the activity accounts, for sure.
Sure.
So I think the club owners and the activity owners, the athletic club owners, they have a fairly good handle on a lot of these fundraisers, because as you've seen, a lot of these fundraisers are reoccurring.
Yeah.
Right? So I think they're fairly good numbers.
Okay. So sometimes it's somebody that I don't recognize. Okay, something didn't work, we're trying something else to see if we can gain some traction in a different direction, so. Okay. Thank you. With that said, item 8.1 O&M updates. Mr. Rinkosik, good to have you. Anything to highlight for this month on there?
Just a couple things, or actually three. Custodial services RFPs were opened last Friday. We did receive 5. We had a lot more interest. We got 5 responses. We're very familiar with a few of the companies, returning people, vendors of interest, service providers, and we're reading through that. We do have a committee formed of a couple of board members and 3 administrators to work on evaluation. I would greatly appreciate if we could meet for just a minute after the meeting to talk about when we could have a first discussion as a committee on this. I don't think we'll be ready for interviews, but I would like to pick a date. The present contract expires May 31st, so it's not a super rush, but there's a lot of planning and equipment acquisition and things that need to go in place. I'd have a goal like maybe the end of the month, so we could present something in March, maybe, good work for consideration. It's nice to see that much interest. There was a broad range of prices that came in there from like 2.1 million to 2.9 million, so there's a lot of work to do on that front to understand how that happened. The second thing I want to bring to the board's attention is our next service contract is soon to expire is our monitoring service for our burglar and fire alarm. And I've been having a lot of discussion in the last 24 hours with that service provider. It's not a large contract, but they're talking about letting it renew with no increase for a period of 5 more years. And it was fixed for 5 already, so very small contract, but we're in the position there. If they give us a written statement, we're believing it's okay to just let it renew right off the language in the contract. And we do have ability within 60 days of them notifying us any price increase to cancel if that ever happens. The last thing I've got for the board is be advised that probably in the very near future you're going to see an agenda item where we're going to ask the board to approve a cooperative purchase to repair and refinish the east gym floor at the high school, which is part of the whole insurance claims for the roofing contractors work last summer. We've had some discussions in the last couple of days with the roofer's insurance company and the contractor who would do the work. They're a very reputable company. They've done some of our work in the past and are respected by even the insurance companies in these kinds of restoration projects in the Midwest. So be on the lookout for that. It'll really be no net expense at the end of the day to the school district. It's just that the insurance providers on these property claims want to give the money to the school district, and the school district see that the work is done to their satisfaction. So we have to run it through the school district. Right now, I'm holding more than double the amount of money against the contractor because of some other expenses that are still not cleaned up. So, and actually some minor punch list items. So we're in a good place financially. We're at no risk. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions the board might have.
Yep. Any questions from the committee or the board? Okay, not hearing any. Moving on to item 8.2, the O&M annual report. Mr. Rinkosik again.
Well, I can't believe it's been 20 years I've been doing this. So there's 20 years of history here in this report that I've been giving the board. I would like to just mention that it's an honor and a privilege to be entrusted by the taxpayers of this community to manage and expend about 8% of the budget. And I'm very privileged that we have a really good staff that helps us make this all work. Kevin Lindquist, our assistant director, is here tonight with us, sitting in the back, and he's a key part of that operation too. Not so pleased about the financial picture. We look at the 20-year history. because of, as they say, the cost of doing business post-pandemic and the pandemic, I can't say that we're less than 1% a year over the life of the term of tracking this. Now, we're about 1.5%, unfortunately. It's been a rough couple of years. We're doing whatever we can to try to keep things at cost, but also to preserve the district's quality of the buildings and the environment for education. I would like to highlight our energy costs over the last 12 months. I took the last 12 months' bills, and I took the total amount of energy consumed, recorded, and divided that into the cost we paid. On the electric side, that is the ComEd bills and the also energy bills from our Forefront, not also energy bills, it's Forefront Power's bills, but the metering software we use is also energy, my apologies. All in at the meter, 5.9 cents. That's awesome. I looked at my bill at home the other night. The bottom line on the bill at your house, and then look at the top of the page and say how many kilowatt hours, is you're probably paying 12 to 15 cents a kilowatt hour.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing very well with everything we've done as a school district to try to keep that at bay, that expense. On the gas side, however, is the bad news, and everybody's feeling the pain. Once again, we've done a lot of work to preserve the position we're in, and we're only paying about 60 cents a therm. I say only, where there were moments in time, 2.5 years ago, we might have paid 19 cents on the spot. But who would have thunk that, 15, 18 years ago, 83 cents was an awesome price. So it's all relative. It's all relative. But because of that 60 cents in gas, our budget overall for energy, gas, and electric combined is what I usually try to look at. It really is flat. We've brought the electricity down, but the gas bounced up. So it could have been a lot worse, though, if we wouldn't done the work we've done. On the idea of energy conservation, and this is at the building, solar doesn't count much on this. But you look at Energy Star certification for a building is what does the building consume itself? And there is a sheet in here that shows the Energy Star numbers, and it's kind of messy because between 2017 and 2018, the EPA decided that they were going to retool the calibration, the calculation. And also, by that time, the competition got tougher. And you're getting graded as a percentile against all the other buildings of your type and profile. But the other thing to look at is the next page is the total energy consumption of the building per square foot per year. And that to me really tells the tale of how are we doing as a school district. And over the period of grading, which starts back in 2010 to now, we've kept our energy consumption 20%. We've reduced 20% annual basis. So and that tells a pretty good story. The last piece of good news in here is I threw in a new page this time, second to last page. Not a lot on there, but it's some good stuff. We did something somewhat unconventional a couple of years ago, right before the pandemic hit, I'm sorry to tell you, and that is that we're having a lot of trouble with water consumption being outrageously high at Square Barn campus. And we had a brainstorm session with our team, and we said, all those automatic flush valves that are in the building are really the root of the problem. They fail. They're a lot more complicated. The condition of the water, they get all the minerals and things in the water can cause that thing to stick and continue to run. Let's just change it all back to the old-fashioned push the handle down to get it flushed. So we analyzed the year before the pandemic that we had some data, and last year, and we saved over 4 million gallons of water consumption on this campus. We've saved a cost of about between $68,000 and $69,000 as compared to those 2 years, which we're going to continue to look deeper now and try to compare those buildings to the other campuses. And we'll have to take a couple of different kinds of look. One is the population, because a lot of it's student dependent. Our kindergarten, K through 2 buildings, those grade levels, they consume a lot more water than the upper grade levels. When you get to middle school, they hardly consume any water. Then you get to high school, and there's sports, and it's a little bit more. So we've got a different kind of analysis to see if there's something there, material that would make worth the investment to try to make that kind of shift there. We've enlisted the support of Strategic Energy Management Cohort to help us understand a little bit more of why. We just know it works. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, actually, for all the work you've done in tracking this for the duration, because I know there's a lot of work that goes into this, and it's a credit to you for the amount of savings that we've benefited from over the years, but it's also credit to the board for having the faith to go down this route and say, yep, where can we find some efficiencies and approve things to make those efficiencies materialize. And so having the numbers and the data to back up some of the directions that the boards of past years have done, including this board, that's really good to see that there's positive results out of all of that. So with my commentary notwithstanding, any comments or questions from the board regarding this O&M report?
No, other than it's a great span of history to see some of these items, the natural gas and the electricity and things like water through here. So it's amazing how much some of the stuff's come down over time. Quite amazing to me to see how some of this stuff has evolved over time. So, I mean, obviously some things have gone up, but I do want to ask you one question. I guess it just drives me nuts, being a resident of Algonquin. The water. Our water bills here, right, at this campus, are they significantly higher rate-wise compared to like in the Hills and Huntley, or?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So it's not just me.
Well, our other two campuses, one of them has street addresses like in the Hills.
Yeah.
But it's Huntley Water.
Okay.
So the only thing I can compare it to is.
So it's Huntley. Yeah.
From a personal basis, the little hamlet I live in has skyrocketed their prices too in recent years. And I've done a study of other communities in the area, and Algonquin's right up there.
Algonquin is out of the road.
Yes. Well, they have some tough commodity to deal with here. The iron counts and the mineral counts are brutal. We have water softeners, and we measure it before we treat it and after we treat it. And the only place we have water softeners now is this camp. This is one of the back one. They really have a tough road to hoe, and I don't know if that plays into why their expense is more, but the water's tough here, and even as we get it treated.
Okay. It might. Yeah, no, that's true too. Okay, it is.
Anything else from the committee or the board?
Just a technical clarification on the measurement when you're talking like cost per square foot and that type of thing. That's all like capital projects would be obviously cash basis during those years. So if you had a big capital spend, you're going to have an uptick.
I apologize. I should clarify, that capital expense does not include new construction. That's just renovation.
Okay.
Just to keep that, it's just to preserve the physical plant that we presently had at the time.
Okay, I got you.
And I think the best look is on that per square foot basis, because we grew so much. Well, square footage numbers are all over the board, but it's based on the square footage numbers.
Right, gotcha.
And I do want to, agree with Paul that this board had to make some kind of tough decisions in the early years of our endeavors to try to go forward with some efficiencies and savings, and it's good thinking on behalf of the board to recognize the opportunities and jump in there and do it, and it's paid off dividends.
And I remember the first guaranteed energy savings contract that we worked on, and then there were the couple others that went after that. So there was a leap of faith, I think, that needed to be done in having that wording actually play out, and it benefited us greatly to do that project, and the building automation that went with it. It's been nice to see all of this stuff evolve and to see the fruits of some of those conversations and work efforts. So thank you, and Mr. Lindquist, thank you for your work through the years on this as well.
And Paul, you personally, when we were doing that first evaluation, you came up with a few ideas to save us about another 15% of energy on that contract. So kudos to you for all your.
Well, the turtle didn't get on the lamppost by himself, so I was fortunate to have good help. Okay, the kudos exercise is over. Let's talk about microgrids. I'm really excited to hear about microgrids and batteries and trailers. I'm kidding. That'll wrap it up for building and grounds. Moving on to item 9.
Legislation, I do not have an update. Possibly next week.
Okay. Would be on to, and there's nothing you have. Not that I know of either, so, on legislation. Okay, item 10 is Board of Education. That one is the minutes. Does anybody have any questions or issues moving the minutes forward for approval? Board meeting, we'll move that forward. We have no closed session, so we will move to item 13, which is adjournment. I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting at 7:48. Is there a second? They're going to close.
Second.
Second from Mr. Daly. All those in favor say aye. Aye.